Hello, good evening, all. You're at the April cycle meeting of Manhattan Community Board 5's Transportation and Environment Committee. I'm the chair of the committee, E.J. Kalaparsky, alongside my vice chair, Sam Levy. We'll probably wait about 30 more seconds to let members of the committee file in to go ahead and get started. We are only going to have one agenda item this evening. Big Bus Tours, which was slated to be on our agenda this evening, informed us about an hour ago that they're withdrawing for the month, probably to a later month. So we do not anticipate hearing at all this evening about the request for a bus stop from Big Bus Tours, and we do not anticipate discussing that or taking a vote on it this evening. That being the case, we have only one remaining item on our agenda for the evening. It's an informational presentation from the Flatiron Nomad Partnership. I believe it's informational and in search of feedback from both the community board's committee and any members of the public who would like to speak about it, but don't currently anticipate any kind of vote or official position on it. But that's the only item that we'll be hearing this evening. A good number of the committee having filtered in, I believe we'll go ahead and get started. So I see some folks from the Flatiron Nomad Partnership are with us this evening. So hello, welcome. Who's going to be taking the lead in speaking or providing any presentation tonight?
Sure, EJ. Hi, everyone. I'll take the lead tonight with Makako as well. So if okay with you all, we'd both like to speak to certain slides, but I can drive it and introduce us to start before, if that's okay.
Yep, that's great. Like I said, I believe you're the only item that's going to be on our agenda this evening. For everyone's awareness, we'll hear the presentation from the Flatiron Nomad Partnership, and then we'll have an opportunity for any members of the committee to ask any questions that they might want to, and then an opportunity for any members of the public who are in attendance to either ask questions or offer 2-minute comments on anything that they've seen as well.
Great. Before I pull up the presentation, I just want to thank you and Sam and Marissa and Mike for getting us on the agenda so close to the date. We did want to provide more intel on a program that we are considering launching this spring throughout Flatiron and Nomad, really one location to start and then build from there. With sidewalk planters, the DOT actually asked us to consider a district-wide approach as opposed to a site-by-site review for revocable consent. So this was a little bit new to us, and I think new to DOT as well. As we start to build it out, we're working with them, and we always kind of joke we're flying the plane while we build it, right? So they're learning with us, we're learning with them as well. So I'll pull up the presentation and begin, and hit share screen. Make sure you all can see this, and I'll go to full screen here. And can everyone see that?
Yep, we can.
Great. Again, I'm Kurt Kavanaugh, Vice President of Planning with the Flatiron Nomad Partnership. I'm here with Makako Murphy, our planning associate, who's really spearheading a lot of the nuts and bolts and fieldwork, which we'll get into in just one moment. Here to discuss what we are considering as the first steps in a district-wide sidewalk planter program to further beautify Flatiron and Nomad, but also really to add to our tree canopy throughout the district. In 2022, about a year ago now, we expanded our footprint in that old navy blue footprint. We lovingly called it the blob around Madison Square Park, our original service footprint. We expanded down to 20th Street and up to 31st Street for a lot more of Nomad, and that expansion over the last year has made us a much more of a rectangular district. So from 20th Street to 31st Street north-south, 6th Avenue to the west and Park Avenue south to the east. We still manage and maintain a lot of the area around the Baruch College campus as well. So it does extend further east along 23rd Street and Lex. And over the last year, we have been kind of, getting the expansionary up to what we consider an acceptable level of service for the horticulture program. A lot of TLC went into the last year, getting Park Avenue South rebuilt from, we now cover 13 total blocks from 19th to 32nd Streets. Rebuilt an actual full planter box at 31st Street, installed 19 new trees, built out almost 100 new, we expanded almost 100 tree pits throughout the district and expanded 3-sided guards for those. And it installed 4 new trees. We have nearly 300 tree pits district wide. We've kind of maxed out our tree pit that we can actually install in the district. About 200 hanging baskets in the district now, and about 200 standing planters in and around the Flatiron Plazas and the shared streets. So our horticulture program is substantial. It's about $1 million program each year. And we've built that out now for a year to get us to what we consider a pretty acceptable level of service throughout. We have, like I said, we have maxed out the number of actual physical pits we can have in the district, and that's in large part due to what's below ground. We have utilities, subway lines, water mains, you name it. But our community survey year after year, and this year was no different. Everybody wants more street trees. Everybody wants a better tree canopy, and people want more sidewalk planters as well. So we're trying to address some of the areas in the district where we don't have as much greenery and as much of a tree canopy, and really to create as inviting a space as we possibly can throughout the entire district. So we're kind of thinking, how can we do this? And we worked with DOT over the last probably 6 or 8 months now, and then they realized that what we're looking for to do for the district would likely be a district-wide maintenance plan as opposed to a one-off review for vocal consent. We started really by looking at the locations in the district that have enough width in the sidewalks to install these safely and site them correctly. So this was something that came out of the pandemic, actually, was a more educated look at the sidewalk widths throughout the entire city. You can see on our map here, we kind of first articulated locations that could be on the widest sidewalks within the district. A lot of them on the avenues, a lot of them on Broadway or near Broadway and Fifth Avenue. Kind of the heart of the district has the widest sidewalks. And from here, I'll turn it over to Mikako to kind of run through the actual nuts and bolts of what we're proposing and also planter types, et cetera. But the idea right here really is to look at how we can beautify the district throughout, including expanding the tree canopy throughout with parks approved species, white pin oaks, ginkgos, birches, that kind of thing.
Thank you, Kurt. Hi, everyone. I'm Mikako Murphy. I am the planning associate at the Flatiron Partnership. And yes, I'll get into the process a little bit here. Excuse my voice. Sorry. I do have a bit of a cough. So these next 2 slides are from DOT's permanent planter guidelines. And they kind of outline the exact footage between different street objects and any proposed sidewalk planters. You can see the green sidewalk planter that is proposed and all these measurements, for example, like 10 feet from the crosswalk or 5 feet from a building entrance. And really the key is maintaining this 8 feet of clear path. So that is walking space for all the pedestrians. Next slide. Thank you. So if that was more of an overhead view of the sidewalk, this is more of a street level view, and it also shows the same footage. And so these are the numbers that I used in determining any proposed site locations for sidewalk planters. Next slide. So as you can see, there are even more parameters provided by DOT that I've summarized here on this slide. So some of them ensure that the planter can support the growth of a canopy tree. So let's say 54 feet of cubic soil is one of the parameters, and then also ensuring adequate drainage. And then there's also parameters to make sure that the planters are functional and blend in well with the city's fabric. So that can be using one planter for visual consistency on the Aves and another for the cross streets, or having the planter be graffiti resistant so that it's easy to clean. So with all of these considerations, we decided on the following planter typology. Next slide. So this first planter that we are considering is the 60-inch or 5-foot wide Brooklyn planter, and it is fabricated by a company called TerraCast. We currently have their planters on our plazas, and we can really attest to the quality of their product. And as you can see on the bottom left, bottom view, the planter design does have forklift grooves and also a lip at the very top of the planter, which is in compliance with DOT's guidelines. Next slide. This particular planter is already in use at the North Flatbush BID in Brooklyn, and it's supporting tree growth, as you can see. So this is kind of just an example of what it would look like in reality. Next slide. We're also considering a rectangular planter for the narrower numbered cross street. So TerraCast, unfortunately, their resin material doesn't really support a rectangular shape. So we shifted and pivoted towards Planterworks, which is another industry leader in sidewalk planters. It's used by our friends over at the Meatpacking District. And to kind of meet the 54 cubic feet guideline, the measurements of the rectangular planter that we would be using would be 6 feet long, 3 feet wide, and 3 feet tall. Next slide. So we'll be starting the program in incremental steps, but it will eventually become district-wide. So our first location that we've identified through a very kind sponsorship is at 21st Street and 5th Ave. And so this is a photo of 5th Ave. You can see Ralph's Coffee is right behind the location. And in order to present our kind of proposed initial locations, I went out into the field and blue taped the perimeter of each planter to see how it would look like in real life. So you can see the blue tape at these locations, and as well as measurements showing the footage of clear path. This is on 21st Street on the southern side, just right across, right around the corner from Ralph's Coffee. You can see here, these are the rectangular planters, and all the planters are 1.5 feet away from the curb and have the 8-foot minimum clear path. And here's another example a little further down on that same south side of 21st Street. You can see us following the parameters for the footage distance between, let's say, the parking meter, the utility hole, as well as the bike rack. And so after presenting that initial kind of round to DOT, they came back with us and presented their updated pedestrian mobility plan, which considers 5th Ave as a global corridor. So that garners a bit more than the 8-foot minimum of walking clear path. And so they suggested we switch from the round 5-foot Brooklyn planters to maybe placing the rectangular planters, which would allow for about 3 more feet of walking clearance. So that is an example that I've taped out for them just to see and show them what it would look like. Next slide. And then, so here is a more detailed map view of the site. It's a zoomed in version of the district-wide map that Kurt showed earlier, which outlines all of the different various street objects that we have, with the green being a sidewalk width that is over 15 feet, so that's 5th Ave, and then you can see 21st Street on the cross street. And so all the red rectangular boxes are the proposed planter locations, and that is according to the version I just showed you. Next slide. And then lastly, here's another alternative that we're considering, in which we go back to using the 5-foot wide big Brooklyn planters on 21st Street, which is the narrow cross street, but doing so in the curb extension. So painting a curb extension and placing the planters there so that we still maintain the pedestrian clearance path while still adding the much needed greenery and street canopy. So while we're still in talks about the final placements with DOT right now, as well as with our partner at these locations, we really wanted to take this opportunity to kind of showcase and present our process thus far, and to hear your feedback and also any of your questions. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Makako. I did want to add as well that all of these proposed locations are simply that right now, except for this hyper-specific location at Simons Foundation. This is in tandem, working very closely with the property owners. This approach with pedestrian extension in particular is something that they're very interested in working with us and DOT in getting this on the ground this spring. This would allow for more space on the sidewalk for clear path and would really calm their entry off Fifth Avenue on 21st Street, and would still allow for all their commercial deliveries on the street.
Great. Thanks to both of you for that presentation and for walking us through both kind of your thinking behind it and the toolkit, the various types of elements that we might be seeing and dealing with. That's very helpful. Thank you. I think I just have a couple of initial questions, and then I'll throw things open to the rest of the committee to ask any questions that they have. Also, obviously, you've mentioned that this is all conceptual and proposed at this point. Nothing is finalized in terms of location. It's obviously, as you said, a somewhat different approach than dealing with an ad hoc revocable consent for each location. We're a big fan of more comprehensive planning for the district as opposed to kind of dealing with everything one off. So that is that's kind of nice to see. I have a couple questions here. First off, as you're illustrating on the slide we're looking at right now, it looks like these sidewalk extensions would be created kind of for the sole purpose of introducing some of the round planters. Is that right?
Yeah.
The location. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the location of those pedestrian extensions would be decided on and created in tandem with DOT, kind of at the same time.
Yeah. DOT would still be in charge of the geometric design and installation of these. They may actually lean on us to paint them out, but we would only work with their design. It wouldn't be something we did on our own. So it would be in tandem with this, and there is some precedent for similar approaches to this, both on 28th and Park Avenue South, where DOT did put in a pedestrian extension, and we are now maintaining planters there. But those are the old plaza type planters. They extended that location, for instance, to finally offer some space for those coming off or onto the subway at 28th and Park, to not just like ending up in the roadbed as soon as they get off the curb.
Okay.
But it'd be similar.
All right. Yep. Thank you. So yeah, the plan that you're kind of coming up with and proposing would be implemented in conjunction with DOT helping to cite and determine certain elements like sidewalk extensions. Got it.
Yeah. For the most part, we're seeing the vast majority of these being actually on the widest or best sited sidewalks we can, as opposed to on the roadbed. Okay.
Sounds good. My other initial question is somewhat of a technical question. Obviously, a revocable consent is a particular type of permit, issued for an individual use of public space, such as taking up space on a sidewalk, which has various effects, such as narrowing the traversable space of the sidewalk, et cetera, et cetera. I'm curious whether you can tell us whether DOT's new approach, what the legal or permitting framework of addressing kind of all of them at once is. Do you know exactly what type of permitting will be issued or determined by DOT as far as, say, the whole plan with its finalized locations would end up being?
Yeah, it would be very similar to the various maintenance agreements that we already have with DOT, and those include it is kind of dissimilar to our plazas, but more like we have a maintenance agreement for the nearly 150 street lamp banner posts. We have 190 hanging baskets. Those are all part of a kind of a streetscape by program agreement that we have with DOT.
Okay.
Yeah, so it'd be very similar to that. We would have to, they would basically have the final map that we would kind of build to. So it'd be like a maximum of X number of planters in these locations, kind of thing. So.
Okay, that's helpful. Thanks. And yeah, I also just wanted to frame things for the committee a little bit here. My understanding seems to be that if these were one-off revocable consents, that they would be coming to Community Board 5 for official comment, because they're all being, number one, nothing we're seeing here is a finalized location, as you've mentioned. Number two, if it all ends up being executed as a maintenance agreement between the bid and DOT, I also don't believe, somewhat paradoxically, whereas individually those would have come to the community board as individual issues for our comment. I don't believe a maintenance agreement, which could cite many of them, probably does come to us for official comment. So I guess I just want to point that out to the committee, because obviously we appreciate you coming to us so early in the process here for more unofficial feedback and comment, particularly since a maintenance agreement, with the final locations might not, at least as far as I understand the permitting process, might not be required to come to the community board for official comment. I'm seeing nods, which hopefully means that my interpretation is kind of correct there. So yeah, appreciate you coming to us with your thinkings and potential locations so early in the process here. Yeah. Those were my questions. Yeah, go ahead. Did you have anything to add?
I was just going to say that a lot of these locations, Makako has been, she's probably grateful there wasn't a really rough winter, because she spent a good bit of time out in the district this winter. I think it was 1,500, street assets that she has mapped and articulated throughout the master map, so to speak. So the locations here adhere to pretty strict DOT siting guidelines, to the point where we're like, do you actually want to do this? So we had to be very, very flexible with their siting guidelines. Okay,
thank you. Those were my questions. With that, I'll throw things open to any members of the committee who might have questions. You can go ahead and use the raise hand. We'll start with Nancy.
When will we see the master map, the larger map?
We're working on finishing that up pretty soon. I would say Makako probably by the next few weeks. Is that about right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be important for us to see.
Yeah, sure thing, Nancy. I think the big thing with this location particularly is which approach DOT prefers, and then how quickly we can work with them on this geometric drawing for to go to finalize for them. But yeah.
Great, thanks. Any other questions from the committee? David.
I guess two questions, and just following up on a comment you just made, Kurt, about DOT's involvement. So just looking at what's on the screen now, I mean, is what we take away from this that you might have preferred to have more planter boxes on Fifth Avenue or some other pattern, but this is what was possible at the end of the DOT review?
Yeah, that's a good question, David. I think the big thing is, you would look at a location, you're like, there's tons of room here, but DOT has certain reasons why that physically may be true, but is not an ideal place for a large planter. For instance, a good example here is the bus stop on the north curb of 162 Fifth. There is quite a bit of space. There's no bus shelter. It's just a bus stick, a bus stop stick. But they require quite a bit of clear path, because they made a good point. They're never sure, because of traffic and other things that can happen, where exactly the bus may pull up. So they have quite a bit of open space they need to keep.
Okay. And
Yeah.
could you put the diagram of the bid back up for 1 sec?
Sure. The full footprint of the bid?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, so there we go. I mean, my question is that Broadway Vision is just getting started now on Broadway, so I was wondering if this plan, it gets rolled out into that area, or?
Yeah, we're considering right now. I think the idea is to utilize the existing TerraCast step planters that you've seen on the plazas now for 15 years to start. There are some select locations where property owners, specifically with 1245 Broadway at 31st Street, would like to see a more, a quote unquote nicer or more developed planting program. So as part of Broadway Vision, I think the opportunity might be 31st Street, but right now we're looking at that footprint from 25th to 31st, 32nd being the step planters from DOT to start.
And then is the idea to expand the program down from there, or?
I think so. I mean, admittedly, these planters are not cheap, right? So it's part slow roll to see how it works, to see how they operate in the district, and also because all in, I mean, each planter is about $5,000 for the first year to get going, and then it goes down from there because you're not paying for them every year. But the to get a full tree and a planter and everything, it's about $5,000 for the first year per planter. So they're much more expensive than the existing that we have in the field right now.
Right. Okay, thanks.
Any other comments, questions? Any other questions from anyone on the committee? All right, not seeing any. With that, we'll see if there's anyone in attendance from the public who would like to ask a question or otherwise make a comment. If you are one of our attendees this evening and you'd like to ask a question, please use the raise hand feature in Zoom now. And not seeing any. Okay, well, we'll bring it back into the committee then. Obviously, once again, kind of really appreciate this preview. To Nancy's question, you indicated that you'd probably try to finalize a plan and locations within a matter of weeks. I don't, as I said, I don't know that means that you'd be required along the lines of revocable consents to come back to us, but is there going to be an opportunity for us to see the finalized plan? Do you have any intentions to either share that publicly or maybe return to us, in a month's time to give us an update?
Yeah, well, what we could probably do is we could happy to share it with committee. Also, the first batch of planters on the ground is going to be a max of 10. So it's not going to be very many. It's going to take years to actually roll this entire thing out. But we'd be more than happy to come back and share with committee as we start, or or share the what we consider a master map, so to speak, that is part of our agreement with DOT anytime as we start this.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Nancy, did you have another question or comment?
I have another question. Is it possible to coordinate your map with where bike stations are and also where restaurant sheds are? I think we need to know that as well. Those are two other things that I don't see that being and I think it's very important that we coordinate those.
Yeah, sure thing. I mean, it'll be we can layer that on our GIS that Makaka's been working on and share those as well.
Great, thanks. Okay, well, I think that's probably it for the time being. We'll really appreciate it if you can share, the more finalized plan as it is developed, and we'll keep an eye on the streets, so to speak, for these things. But we really appreciate you working so hard to give us an update here before some of these things are finalized. Just to make things official, I'll move us into our business session here. Does anyone on the committee want to offer a comment on the items that we just heard? Yeah, Nancy.
I think it could be beautiful. I'm looking forward to it. My office is on 22nd Street, so I'm very excited to be in an area where we're going to have trees and some flowers. No, it'll be civilized, right? A civilized streetscape. How lovely. So thank you so much for the effort. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. That's one of the big reasons that we exist, right? And one of the other things about the program too is it's not just simply trees are the bedrock of it, but it's also the supplemental plantings throughout each season that will be in those planters as well. So our spring plants on the plazas go in, should be Friday if all goes as planned. So you'll see some pop some color soon, and it's a good way to celebrate spring for sure. So we're excited about. I always get a little excited this time of year when we get our first plants in. So.
Comment from Jonathan.
Yeah, I just want to second that Nancy's comment. It's great to see, any sort of greenery in the neighborhood. We have so little and so much concrete, and trees, plants, flowers, anything that's thriving on the street is great to see.
Great.
So
Yeah, thank you, Jonathan. One thing we really noticed, especially as part of the expansion work, was when you get to the high 20s and some of those wide avenue cross streets, it does feel like you're in the Midtown grid all of a sudden, right? So we want to really soften that up.
Great, thanks. All right, not seeing any other comments, we'll bring this item to a close. Thanks again to the Makako and Kurt, the Flatiron Nomad Partnership, for the presentation. We'll look forward to whenever you're able to share a more finalized plan with us, with the committee. But thanks again for coming before us this evening. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Thanks, you too. That was the only item on our agenda for this evening. Is there any new business? Yeah, Nancy.
I don't know if it's new business, but I think it's a great idea for the bids to start giving us some sort of street sidewalk master plan. Maybe we can piece these together from bid to bid. I just am so excited that we're getting a piece of a master plan. So that's exciting to me. It's not new business, but I just wanted to make that comment.
Yeah, same. I agree. It's certainly going to be a lot nicer to be able to look at a final plan like that. I mean, to be able to see the iterative proposed one, tonight, and then a final one when it's developed. And that's our gospel here, is that we would like to see much more of a comprehensive overhead view of the district instead of looking at individual planters or stops or any other things one by one. So yes, agree 100%. Okay, not seeing any other hands indicating new business for the evening. We will, our agenda is exhausted, and we'll draw this somewhat short committee meeting to a close. Thanks everybody for joining this evening, and have a great night.